It's a cute city. a must see.
I think it's one of the oldest, like Ottoman towns in Europe.
Place. This is my favorite place in Albania.
Beautiful town here. The castle, Pasha Bridge.
This is a city that you might want to place on your bucket list. It's Gjirokastër, Albania, which is nestled in a valley in the southern part of the country, about a 2-hour bus ride from where I've been staying in Vlora. There's so much to see here. The entire Old Town here is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as the stone buildings provide a spectacular showcase of Ottoman architecture. I'll take you through the Old Town and explore other features of the city later, but we'll start with the most dominant structure in town, the Castle of Gjirokaster. I admit that to this point my exposure has been fairly limited, but I have to say that this castle on top of the hill in Gjirokaster is the most impressive that I have visited. It is massive and so much of it is still intact. I've seen various dates provided for when the citadel was built, but it appears that the 12th century is the most accurate in terms of this structure. Certainly there was a human presence and even fortifications at this location as early as the 4th century. This is said to be the second biggest castle in Albania and one of the largest in the Balkans. It is a treat to roam through its passageways and wander about the grounds, all safely inside of the citadel's walls. You can easily say that this is the most defining symbol of the city of Gjirokastër. It is fantastic when residents of a place recognize the value of something such as this. That is absolutely the case here.
The castle is the dream. The castle is big. The castle is wonderful. It's so beautiful.
From all indications, just about every tourist who comes to Gjirokastër walks up from the town to get a look at this magnificent piece of history. Many say that they were surprised with what they found.
To be honest, I did not expect to see this beautiful place.
I don't have many expectations, so I'm very surprised.
I had the same reaction. I was simply astounded when I realized the full extent of this place that I was so fortunate to experience. I have been here for about an hour, and if I didn't have other places that I wanted to see, I could stay here for 2 or 3 more. I also paid 400 lek, which is about $4 to get in. It would be a bargain at double that price. The clock tower, which is situated at one end of the castle, rises as the most prominent feature inside the walls. It was added here in the 19th century by an Ottoman ruler. It looks as though it was once possible to climb the tower, but that was not an option when I stopped in. Inside and outside, there is just so much to see at this attraction.
The view is amazing and the castle is pretty well preserved, isn't it?
It is.
And it's massive.
I think it's really beautiful and a lot of history stuff also. I learned a lot about Albanian history.
When thinking about Europe, castles certainly come to mind, but they weren't at the top of the list when considering a trip to Albania. In fact, however, the country boasts more than 150 castles. This is one of the best.
It's super beautiful, amazing. I have been in several places in the Mediterranean area, and this place is really magnificent.
There are numerous sections of the castle to discover. It's great to walk as far as you are allowed up on top, getting close to the perimeter walls and finding areas that make you wonder how they were used. On the inside, you walk until you hit a dead end, then turn around and do it in another direction. There was a prison inside the castle, which was used by many through the years, including the communists, before it was shut down in 1968. On the brighter side, there is a performance space out in the open, which is still used, most notably for the National Folk Festival every 5 years. The castle is home to a couple of museums. One is called the Museum of Armaments. A central corridor is lined with big guns and other weapons, many from the First and Second World Wars. Of note is an Italian tank. It is a Fiat L640 and was one of the smallest tanks used during World War II. Outside is what is left of a 2-seater Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star airplane. It's an American jet trainer that either landed or was forced down in 1957. It was brought here in the late 1960s, a Cold War trophy. The pilot said that he got lost in the fog, while Albania claimed that this was a spy plane. Those elements add a lot to the experience here. Straight down from the castle is Gjirokaster's Old Town. With stone streets that are meant solely for pedestrians, this is an incredibly charming area. The Ottoman-era architecture is fully displayed in this part of town. Some call this the Stone City, and it's easy to see why it got that name. From the cobbled streets to the whitewashed stone buildings to other structures created by stacking stones and topping them off with slate roofs. There are shops and cafes of all sorts in this location. For the best views of Old Town and the surrounding city, there is the hill on which the obelisk is situated. 7 meters in height, the obelisk is a monument to education as it sits on the site of one of the first schools in the city. More specifically, it pays tribute to the Albanian language. Under Ottoman rule, it was forbidden to use Albanian language in schools. It's an attractive art piece, and once again, the views are pretty spectacular. The city as a whole, and Old Town in particular, is built on hilly terrain, so the streets rise and fall like a carnival ride. It was a delight simply to walk the streets and alleyways through the entire town. They were narrow passages, which provided a very European feel to the place. On many streets, there is only room for one vehicle to go through at a time. That is especially true when the vehicle is a rather large bus. During daylight hours in Old Town, there are not only the regular shops and cafes, but other vendors as well. This is the site of the Gjirokaster Bazaar. All kinds of items are for sale. From my perspective, the colorful goods and their placement right on the street enhance the entire atmosphere. As I made my way around the area, I found several craftspeople working on their products. One of those was a woman who was knitting in the doorway of her storefront in Old Town. Up near the entrance to the castle, a man was using a hammer and chisel to decorate stone blocks. I watched him work for several moments. Such a cool skill to be able to grab a blank piece of slate and etch out a design that is both beautiful and meaningful. As he worked, finished pieces sat for sale nearby. Lastly, there was a woman close to the castle entrance too. She had stonework for sale as well, and when I walked by, she was in the process of knitting. I really enjoy watching people create. There is no end to the admiration I have for what they can accomplish. One of the coolest features in or around Gjirokaster is the Pasha Bridge. In reality, however, it's actually not a bridge at all. This beautiful arch structure is what remains of an aqueduct, which was built to bring water from a mountain spring into the city. The aqueduct was built in the early part of the 19th century. It moved water over a distance of 10 kilometers. Almost all of it was dismantled in the 1930s. Apparently, the Pasha Bridge is all that is left. This span is 16 meters high, 14 meters long, and a little over 2 meters wide at the top. I went early one morning. The walk from where I was staying went straight uphill through a residential section. When I topped the crest, I discovered wilderness and realized that the bridge was pretty far below me. This was amazingly gorgeous countryside and fairly rugged terrain. To get closer to the section of aqueduct, I descended into the gorge over a rocky path. It was a pretty quick hike to the bottom, which was a dry creek bed. From there, the path ended, and it was a scramble to get as close as you wanted to the bridge. I did not actually get as close as I would have wanted. After capturing a few clips, I climbed back up and out of the gorge. I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad that's over. I'm not a big fan of heights, and that combined with the drop off on one side of the trail, rocky, shifting terrain on the trail itself, and the fact that I'm out here by myself, I was never comfortable. It's one of the realities of solo travel. When tackling something such as this, it's necessary to be more cautious than if you were with others. You simply should be aware of the chances that you take when you are alone. My home during my stay in Gjirokaster was the Hotel Bebe Tradicional. It was incredible. The room was comfortable and modern, and there was a balcony and terrace which provided great outdoor access. Maradona and his wife owned the hotel.
First I open only one room and I see the many guests coming here. I reconstruction another room, 1, 2, 3, now I have 10 rooms for my hotel.
The hospitality was particularly uncommon, with rides to and from the bus stop, a fantastic breakfast every morning, and the offer to help in any way I needed.
This is a small hotel, this is a love, the guests. This is a business, the family, only love, love, love.
I would stay here again with no hesitation. It was a bit of a walk up and down hills to Old Town, but that walk included a treat. To save distance and elevation gain and loss, there was this pedestrian tunnel through the mountain. I used it several times each day. My guess is that the distance covered by the tunnel was a bit more than 100 meters. It passed directly below the castle of Gjirokaster. The pathway was stone and lighting was in place so that it was possible to see the way. When emerging on the side opposite from my hotel, you would go up to the castle entrance or down into Old Town. So cool. There's an even more famous tunnel in the city. They call this the Cold War Tunnel. Guided tours are offered here for 200 lek, or around $2. The guide is necessary because it would be easy to get lost in the passageways, which total about 1 kilometer in length. This was one of 3 such tunnels built in Albania during the Cold War. The other 2 were near the capital. In case of nuclear war, this would have provided food and protection for 3 months for a very select group.
This one was built only to accommodate 200 members of the Communist Party.
Leaders here at the time of the Cold War trusted no one. They saw threats from both the West and other communist powers. As I've mentioned before, Albania was considered the North Korea of Europe.
1960, Enver Hoxha, the leader of the Communist Party, broke the relationship with the Soviet Union. He was afraid of a nuclear attack here in Albania, and this is one of the reasons he decided to build this bunker.
The tour here took less than a half hour. There are quite a few buildings of interest to see during a visit to Gjirokaster. Right in Old Town is the Bazaar Mosque, formerly known as the Memi Bey Mosque. It is only here because it was granted cultural monument status in the 1970s. 12 other Ottoman-era mosques were destroyed under Albania's communist regime. The building dates to 1757. Down the hill, there are ruins of the Machides Mosque. Built in the 17th century, this was one of the mosques that fell to the communists. Some of the 7 fountains associated with the structure remain, and at least one still has water flowing. There are efforts to restore some of what was here, including a bathhouse. The Skanduli House was constructed in 1705. It is a grand example of the splendor of the stone architecture that is so prominent in Gjirokaster. This takes it to another level, however, with 64 windows, 44 doors, and 9 chimneys. Chimneys were a sign of status back in the day. It operates as a museum today. Another prime example of the Ottoman style of building is the city's ethnographic museum. This one, though, only dates to the 1960s. It was the childhood home of Albania's communist dictator. Destroyed in a fire, it was rebuilt in 1966. I found this guy taking a nap on some of the slate roof tiles. I spent 3 nights in Gjirokaster and enjoyed the places within Old Town that entire time. There was the Komiteti bar. Like many places, it serves both coffee and alcohol. There's a bar of the same name in Vlora's Old Town, and from the looks of the 2 places, they are related. This was one of the spots where I enjoyed a cappuccino. Everywhere I've been in Albania, a large cappuccino will be $2 or less. For lunch one day, I stopped at a place called Simple. There I enjoyed sitting outside and having what was called a village salad. It was very similar to a Greek salad. I liked it very much. The salad, bread, and a bottle of water totaled close to $5. I popped into Glico's Snacks and Pastries one afternoon for my new obsession, gelato. I grabbed 1 scoop of blueberry in a cup at a cost of $1. Gelato never disappoints. There were a couple of places that I stopped for a beer while I was in town. Old Town 13 was at the main intersection inside of Old Town. It was fantastic, sitting on a slightly elevated perch and taking in the sights. I also enjoyed a beer one afternoon at Baba Meadow 2. It was on the street that was filled with tables and chairs, which made for such a pleasant place to relax for a few moments. I think both beers were around $2.50. What a unique place. It starts with the castle up high, the tremendous stone buildings and streets which make up Old Town, that tunnel which is fascinating from the Cold War and just keeps going from there. I've been thoroughly impressed. I just learned that the drive from Gjirokaster to the border with Greece is 31 kilometers, or less than 20 miles. That's the next country that I'll visit, but I'm not ready to leave Albania yet. Few people ever even think of this country, but I am truly enjoying myself. See you next time on Old, Alone, and Far From Home.